It's right on YouTube. It was wrong on Twitch.
Hey guys! I guess YouTube got to sit and watch us be weird for a minute. So like our little fun intro thing ended, and then it just went to, I don't know, this weird waiting screen.
That's about it.
Yeah. So in any case, welcome to our show. I've got super special guest John here with us today.
Hello.
Who is the rawhide expert, in my opinion. That's my opinion.
Oh, I appreciate that.
He's the expert in rawhide, but other people also think the same thing. He does a lot of rawhide work around the Springfield area, and I feel like you've done a lot of work around the country, or for things that have gone around the country.
Have gone around the country, yes.
So we had him here maybe last year, I think it was. I was not here, so I didn't get to witness the video, but you did rawhide lampshades.
That's correct.
Last year. I think it was while I was out of town at one point. So I'm super excited to be here for today to actually, rawhide, as somebody said last week, is a different animal from leather.
It is.
I mean, it's still technically the same set of animals, but it just functions very much differently from leather. So it's something that I really know very little about.
Right.
And I'm excited to watch you make a balron.
Balron. Yep.
Balron with a W.
Did you want your on-air light on?
Oh, son of a gun. No, we're not on air.
Okay.
Anyways.
All that and we're not on the air?
All that and we're not on the, can you
now we are, the lights on.
Look at that, we're on air. Alrighty, so we're going to watch him, but this will be a two-parter. So we'll be here today and then also on Friday. And I think it's pretty darn cool. He's got a finished one there. So John, why don't you take it away?
All right. Well, so they asked me to do a drum, and most of the drums that I've done in the past or that I've watched other people do are traditionally the ones with the rawhide lacing, like an Indian drum or a Native American drum. And I love Irish music, so I've been interested in picking up the balron and learning the balron. A friend of mine plays, and he's been suggesting.
It's like you just kind of let the end of that word just trail off, and you just don't even really.
You do. So a balron is an Irish hand drum.
Okay.
It comes 3.5, 4 inches to 8. I've seen 10 inches.
Oh. So that's deeper, right?
That's deeper,
really
right?
Deep.
And they have deeper tones.
Right. Okay.
Deeper
both ways.
Right. Yeah. The balron is played with what we call stick or a tipper.
Okay.
This particular tipper is like a whole bunch of skewing sticks put together, which gives it an interesting tune. I don't know how to play, so if I, when I do it, just don't make fun of me. I've not learned yet, but I figured before I learn, I'm going to make my own. I'm going to start off by making one. This is a very simple, fundamental balron. They get a little more complex as you go deeper, and it's a non-tunable. Mm-hmm. And tuning means that there's an inner rim in most cases where you can adjust and increase the pressure on the rawhide head, which gives it a finer pitch, a higher pitch. Mm-hmm. Rawhide, as time goes by, as it absorbs moisture and such, and as you hit it, will start to stretch a little bit, so it'll lose that, and it gives you the ability to adjust it. Even a basic one like this that's not tunable, they now make little tuning keys that you put in there that can even make this now tunable. So,
is that just something you can find on Amazon? Probably?
You can. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So now, can you spell this for us real quick?
Okay. Balron is spelled Bodhran, but it's pronounced Balron, Bowrawn. Okay. So that's the phonic.
So the first one was the spelling. So if you're looking for, I assume you could just type that into Amazon and then type in like tuning or pitchforks, tuning keys. I'm sorry, you call
turning
them
keys. Yes,
turning keys.
Okay. Balron turning keys, and you should be able to find them. There's many of them out there.
Cool.
Anyway, so we're going to learn how to make one. I've had people ask me about the lacing of the Native American style. There'll be some suggestions I'll give you because fundamentally it's kind of the same concept. Mm-hmm. But to get into more complex with those, that will be...
Maybe we'll have to do one of those
That'll have to be later on.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of information, of course, always.
William said he got to make one of these while he was in Ireland.
Good for you.
Last year. Isn't that cool?
Good for you.
Anyways.
Okay, so what we'll start with is
a base.
This is a 15-inch by 3.5-inch rim, wooden rim. what I'm going to suggest you start with, and we'll go ahead and get started, is some sandpaper.
Mhm.
This is 150 grit, 120 is fine, but you want it fairly fine. And we're just going to round the edges on both sides. That'll help, number one, the rawhide to grip and be smoother. You won't have a roughness in the rawhide.
I was gonna say, because
as it's
ours are
drying
square.
too.
Like if you just buy a rim from us, it's just square
Squares.
edge.
So we want to round it somewhat and take off any burrs that may be on there as well. So we're going to start with that. We'll start with that. And I do both sides because a hand drum, your hand actually goes on the inside. You don't pound on it with the hand with other than the stick, but your hand actually sits on the rawhide on the inside. Now you generally don't put your whole hand against it. You touch it with your finger, and as you move your hand around, putting a little more pressure on different locations, it changes the pitch. It's also held, I mean, in a sitting position generally on your knee, tucked up under your arm. And then your hand can go up inside. If you guys can kind of get I'm holding this right, you can kind of see how it's going. There's also, in some of the Valrons, there's a cross or a support beam that takes place in the center. They're in the shape of a T, shape of a plus, and the shape of an X. And I'm not doing it on these because you've got to tuck your hand up underneath and be able to move it around a little bit.
It's hard to do.
It's very difficult in this with the shallowness. At least for me, I can't do it. So we're gonna not do that on this project. I know there's going to be an Irish song that's going to probably open up with me with the sandpaper. There's got to be something. Yeah, my family, my sons particularly, are heavy into the Irish. My wife is Irish, and my sons pick up on the accent, and we have a lot of fun when they're out there being Irishmen. People try to convince themselves that they're not Irish, but they can never get them out of the accent.
How much of that are you gonna do in here?
How much time do we have? An hour?
Yeah, but yeah.
All right. We're just trying to smooth it off.
I'm glad I didn't.
I'm going to cheat. I cheated a little bit. This actually was squared. I've done a little bit of sanding on it as well, so it wouldn't take so long.
I know. I figured it looked
really
pretty done to me.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Look pretty sanded, but quit sanding.
Yeah, quit sanding. All right. Now,
Yes, we do sell rims. We have several different. This is one that we sell.
yes, it is.
So this is just
This
drum rims. I think it's the old as the hills picture still on there because it's not been an item that we've updated in forever. But we have all the sizes. We have a lot of sizes.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely.
If you want to start easy, or I'm not sure if easy is the right word, but we carry these at like 10 inch, 12 inch, and you can make a Valron out of small, narrow ones as well.
Drum frame.
Drum frame.
Okay, I'm just talking about the item.
All right.
That one's 3 inch by what? 15?
It's 3 or 3.5. Says 3 by 15. I think the actual measurement's 3.5, but yes. You don't want to go any narrower than that, again, because you're putting your hand up inside. It's hard to hold on to also when it gets so narrow.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next item on it is, this is a 19 to 21 goat rawhide, drum heads, and we're going to soak it, and that's going to take a few minutes to get all nice and loosened up. So we carry that as well. I've got a bucket of water back here.
We got a table.
Heavy.
That doesn't have any water in it.
No water. Now, it's going to take a few minutes to soak. I probably should have started off with that.
No, that's not, I'm kind of
You
curious.
know what
This would be
happens when you shop at Menards?
what?
Do you know what happens when you shop at Menards?
No, what
You
happens?
save big money. Save big money.
I thought that was Ross.
Oh, the bucket is Menards.
Oh,
That's where
I'm
we're at.
sorry.
I was like, where is it happening right now?
that one's
That's Chevy's like, this stream is brought to you by Menards.
I'm going to get paid any world piece for that. All right.
Hey,
let's go over.
If Menards wants to sponsor us.
There you go. Let's go over some of the stuff I have
Okay,
here on the
yeah,
table.
let's talk about the
Let's do
supplies
that.
that you guys are going to need.
All right. So the Valron if you notice, and we'll do this on Friday on the finishing, has upholstery tacks in it. So that'll be one of the things you're going to need to pick up. Upholstery tacks. You're actually going to need to snip them to length because they're a lot longer than the thickness of these rims.
Do you just snip them after you put them through? Or
no, I snip them beforehand. Okay. I snip them beforehand. So, so we got a rim. We've got a 19 to 21 inch, and that's the diameters written on the packaging. Goat rawhide, and it's bleached. You don't have to do bleach, but bleach is most commonly what's used in the Barons. So
I have a question. So depending on the size rim that you have, how much bigger should your rawhide be? So if they go down to a 10-inch rim?
Okay, so this is 15, and we're going to do a 19 when it's soaked. It's going to be 21. So we're going to start at 19. So we're 4 inches wider than the rim. That's 2 inches hanging over on every side. That's what you need. With the goat, that's what you should go with. Okay.
So at least 2 inches.
Correct. Correct. If you use cow, first of all, rawhide is an animal of its own, like we said in the beginning. It's very. It can be difficult to work with because you can't really predict where it's going to pull in, where it's going to dry, and where it's going to pull in. So what we want to do is, if it pulls in too much, if it's too thick, like cow rawhide, it'll crush the rim.
Yes.
So you want to avoid that. That's one of the reasons the goat works so well as well. It's not so thick that when it dries in, now I've got a broken frame. At least I haven't yet. I mean, you look at this one, it's fine, right? I do a lot of work with deer rawhide is what majority of my work that I do, which is great for drums. I do it for lampshades. I use it for big chandeliers that I make. And for fun, last time I did this, somebody asked me about an old American fur trapping, like the French Indian War time frame sheets. So I went ahead and I had fun and I made one. And one of the things you realize is that it's made of deer. It's double thickness.
Okay.
And then the lacing. Somebody also asked me about lacing when they make their drum. How to do the lacing. Well, this is what I suggest if you're going to lace. Let your rawhide dry, your drum head dry most of the way. The sheath, I had them let dry most of the way, if not all the way. Then I lace it with cow. Not goat, not deer, but with cow. You need that thicker cow strength to make it work. But and then let them dry separately. So first the sheath, then, or in this case, the drum, then lace it with the cow and let that dry separately.
Did you drill the holes out after it was dried?
No, I actually punched them out while it was close to dry, not all the way. It's easy to work with rawhide when it's not soaking wet and when it's not solid, hard, dry. When it's close to dry, it's got the texture. Yeah, it's got the texture kind of like of our denim buffalo. You know, it's thick, it's hard, it's easy to work with. It's easy to punch the holes out. But if you try to lace it and have a lace wet and the rawhide work, the sheath wet, and they try to dry, they won't dry together. They'll dry separately, and then your lacing will be all loose.
Yeah.
So then you have to cut it and go back and do it all over again. So it's better to, for me, to do the rawhide sheath, let it dry most of the way, if not all the way, then go back and lace it with the wet lace afterwards and let it dry.
Punch your holes before it's fully dried.
Right. And again, it's going to be the texture. I want you to think of something. If somebody doesn't have a buffalo, they may not know the reference of what we're talking about. But a veg tan, that's probably
like a wax content veg tan. I feel like.
Yeah, that's a good description. That's a good description. So, anyways, rim, drumhead, rawhide. Turn that over. Yeah, we can turn that over.
Whee!
And I hope that's take a little longer than the last time I did it. So soak it all down there. All right, paper towels. And you're going to use these to wipe the rawhide down when we pull it out because you don't want water all over the place. You don't need that. Clamps, I picked these up from Harbor Freight. They're pretty cheap and they're great. I use these all the time.
Okay.
Sandpaper, we talked about. Wood glue. Instead of lacing or instead of relying on the upholstery tacks to hold the rawhide in, what happens with that if you're relying on just the upholstery tacks or staples, as some people do, as you're using the drum, they start to tear away where the upholstery tack posts are or the tacks are. The glue holds it firm, it lasts longer, especially in a case like this when you're not spending a ton of money on a Baron. But even if it does eventually come off, it's easy enough to get in there and clean up the wood glue and just resurface it again. So wood glue I would recommend using, especially in your first Baron.
We had a question come through real quick. So when you're sanding the edge of the drum, this wood, it looks like it's pretty soft. Like it's not a super hard wood. So do you think that you would need to use like an electric drill or something electric to sand the edge? I mean, I guess you could if you wanted to go faster, but the hand sanding is probably fine.
It's quick enough with the hand sander. If you use something automatic, an electric one, it's easy. This is a bit softer wood. I'm not exactly sure if it's birch. Maple or Baron maple and some of your heavier oaks are higher up in your what's recommended for the rims. This is also multiple ply like plywood.
Yeah.
Versus a solid piece. If you get into bending your own wood, steaming your own wood, and forming it, and I'm personally would love to start getting into that. I've picked up the wood, but I got to make a steamer, and that takes only time. Only time. So anyways, but yeah, just do it by hand, especially something this size.
Yeah.
It's easy to control. If you hit it with the automatic, you may go deeper than you wanted to. Now you got a divot you're going to have to mess with.
I say you'd also just it looks like just like the curve of your fingers is kind of the perfect curve for the round.
Do.
That's all you want. Springfield, Missouri, there, person that commented on Twitch. Anyways.
All right. Upholstery tacks we talked about. Clamps. All right. Contact cement. This is Van Grip. Thank you. I've got some oil tan. You're going to need a strip of leather. This is for your finishing around the edge that your upholstery will go in. And then we tape. We're going to tape our Baron. The Barons aren't always taped. It affects the pitch of the rawhide. So as you can see on this one, it is taped. And so we'll do that. That'll be a Friday project. But you'll need now 3/4 inch electrical tape and 1.5 inch electrical tape, one of each. All right, what else we got? Tack hammer. I've got an anvil in which we'll use on Friday. If you don't have an anvil, you need a hard surface, a good chunk of wood that you can fasten to your table and stick out so you can hold your drum over the edge. Okay, that's your big thing on that. It's going to be, you don't want to try to tap them through. It's just sitting on the table. The whole drum will bounce, and you'll have an issue with that. All right, Dremel.
Not that far away from Springfield, Illinois.
No,
we're not. You're just right over there. Just right over there. All right, this is 5/64 drill bits. I wouldn't go any larger than a 1/16 inch drill bit. And again, these are to put the holes through for your upholstery tacks. You don't need to go as wide as your upholstery post, but you want a good starter, and that's what that'll be used for. And a Dremel, in which we'll do on Friday as well as we set it up. You can use a hand drill. So the size of the bit is what's...
I know you talked about that weird yellow rubbery thing.
Oh, the rubbery thing. Okay, this, you need a rubber band, a big rubber band will work. This is an exercise rubber thingy that they give you for like physical therapy or exercising, whatever. It works great.
All right, John, on your electrical tape, does it matter what brand you use?
No, 3M is, I've used Scotch and 3M. 3M's my favorite. It's worked the best, but I've not had any problems with any of it. And when you use it, you don't want to stretch it. You want it taut, but you don't want it stretched.
Which we'll go over on Friday.
Does it matter that you use a Menards bucket, or could you use a Lowe's one?
But
Oh, right. I don't know. My house is the house.
Did you talk about your piece of leather?
We did. We started to, and maybe I went on a rabbit trail. The leather is 1 inch wide. It's 4 feet long, and we'll end up trimming it to size. But that's for the finishing, and you'll see why. When we put the rawhide on, and when the rawhide gets glued and fastened down, we're going to trim it, and then there's a little roughness to it. So we want to clean that up and make it look pretty. Most of the leather and the upholstery tacks are really more for appearance than it is for anything practical in the use of the drum. But you always want your Baron to look.
Everybody's got to have ribbons and bows.
Everybody. All right. Let's see where we are on our rawhide.
We have a 3M plant here in town. It's just down the road.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's not there yet. It is getting there.
Rawhide takes a long time to soak up some water. It's definitely not like leather in that respect.
This is true. Yeah. So the thicker. Let's talk a little bit about rawhide. I've got one of the questions I commonly get is painting, staining rawhide. How will it take? My recommendation is don't do it when it's wet, because if you ever took a sponge, a wet sponge, and put a drop of food coloring in the middle of it, it doesn't stay right there. It spreads out. And so even if you tape off your rawhide and try to keep it within that, it's underneath. It's going to spread out. You'll have you'll look like a kid trying to.
So paint it after it's done.
Yeah.
If you're going to
paint it when it's dry.
Okay. Or dye it when it's dry.
Yeah.
Also, I think
or laser engrave it. I've seen laser engraving looks really good on some of this too. We have some really nice laser engraving looking stuff.
Did you have any tips about color? Because you colored the wood on that one. So I guess but that you just stained it beforehand.
I did. So
big deal.
Okay. So if you're going to color, mine's stained. Stained takes days. It's got an oil base to it and takes many days to dry. And then I hit it with the polyurethane spray on top of that and gave it another day to dry. I wanted it thoroughly dried, because if you don't, when you start stretching your rawhide, it's going to pick up that stain and it's going to make it look ugly. So so let it dry thoroughly when you stain it. Start with an inch or 3/4 inch, I think is the width, masking tape, painter's tape, right around the edge. And because that's where your wood glue is going to go. And you don't want the wood glue on the stain, it won't hold. So you want it right on the wood itself. So put yourself, again, an inch wide or 3/4 inch masking tape or painter's tape. Go ahead and stain the rest of it. Give that the time to dry. We're not staining, since I have a completed one, we're not going to stain it in this session. But by all means, they look beautiful when you do that. And again, I've seen them without stain. They're still beautiful.
Yeah.
Your call.
I know. I almost want to cut you a different piece of leather. I think we should do. Could you do veg tan, or does it need to be a finished leather?
I like the finished leather. It's either work, but you got to stretch it when you're putting it around the leather. We're going to use a little van grip and stuff we'll show, and we got to stretch it to hold it taut. I'm not so sure the veg tan will stretch so well and be a nice clean, because you'll need to do a finishing on the veg tan. What are you thinking?
Well, I was just thinking because it's black and we're going to do like a natural drum, so having something that was a little bit more natural colored. But we can look at that before Friday, because I don't think we're going to get there today.
No, we're not going to get there today. Okay. And we can play with it in our time off.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So you'll start with your tape. If you're going to stain it, polyurethane it, give it a day or two, at least 2, to dry. And then when you're done, you'll peel off the masking tape. You'll come back and you'll see a fine line of where the difference is. And don't worry about bleeding over from the stain, because and some of it always makes its way up underneath the tape.
Yeah.
That's not a big deal. As long as the majority of the wood is bare, you're fine.
Yeah.
You'll put your wood glue on it, and we'll do that here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, Michael, you can dye the rawhide. Just wait till your drum is done and then dye it, right?
Well, if he wants to paint it, if you want the whole thing to be dyed a particular color, I always do mine. This is the knife. And it started off pretty close to the same, a little bit darker, but pretty close to the same as the Baron is now. I did it totally dried. I didn't do it wet. So if that's what you want to do, if you don't want a picture, if you want to dye the whole thing.
But did you do it after you molded it or before you molded it?
No, after.
Okay, so yeah, so
When
like make your drum and then dye it.
Yeah.
And you're good to go.
When it was all done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just, when it's wet, it'll pull and it's going to be weird. And plus, if you try to dye it before, then you're just going to put it in a bucket of water. That's going to mess up everything. So just dye it when it's all done and dry. And
rawhide holds dyes pretty well. I've had it work. I get that question asked a lot. Can you stain or paint? Yeah,
what do you
stain
use?
Works all the time. I used the Orion.
Okay.
That we used to carry. I have a few bottles of that left at the house. That's what I've been using. But I've also used, trying to remember the name brand. It's the big square bottle.
The Fenici?
Fenici. Thank you very much. The Fenici, I used Fenici as well. I got some of that at the house, and it works great.
Okay.
So, yep. All right.
Do you think you could shaving cream dye that? I guess I don't see why not, because it's still the dye.
Yeah.
Sure, try it out.
Shaving
I feel like
I need pictures. Do it and send me pictures.
Yeah.
We need pictures of that. Okay. I think we're getting pretty good on this. It's not super,
How do you know when it's done?
How easy is it going to be for me to take and stretch it around the unit?
Okay.
It could soak for a little bit more, but it doesn't need to soak too much.
Like, is there like a certain noodle?
Well, you don't want it to be. You don't really want it to be a noodle, because then it's it's.
So
again,
we want a heavily al dente. We want half-cooked noodles.
Yeah,
okay.
That's good. That's
Half-cooked
good.
noodles.
They won't stick to your fridge yet if you throw them up against the fridge. They won't. You need them to be a little sticky or a little softer than that.
I don't recommend it, Dean.
What was his question?
Eating the rawhide.
Eating rawhide?
I mean, Luna could probably eat it.
I got to tell you, they have me bringing my deer rawhide scraps in for their dogs, and my dog goes crazy for it too. He'll come into my shop if he's freed up, and he'll start sniffing around for it. He'll grab
that's Luna's favorite part on the
pull it out of the garbage can.
Yeah. I know this corner. I know this corner.
I don't think there's any issue with them eating this either. I wouldn't eat it.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're desperate and you're dying, like sure, gnaw on some rawhide, I guess. But like, if you're not, then what's the maybe don't.
Maybe.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna start putting the glue on. The glue's gonna take a minute to dry, anyways. Whenever you apply the glue, always give it some. Don't immediately stick what you want to glue to it on it. Give it some time to air and dry and get tacky. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that.
When the glue gets tacky, that's always what we recommend.
I'm big on tacky.
Grab this piece of paper and pull that rawhide out of here and have something to lay it.
That's fine. I actually have some I had in the bucket I brought in for that purpose, but this is fine too.
Oh, that's fun. So Larry did a drum several years ago, and they dyed the rawhide wet in a bucket with walnut something. There's a heart over it, so I can't see that word. Did a tie-dye by tying up the softened rawhide.
Did you use black walnut?
You know what he's saying there? Walnut.
Black walnut, which was used commonly in ink and dyes and stuff back in the early American, probably even earlier than that.
Oh, trash can is behind you, next to the stool.
Very good. Very good. All right. So I'm going to smooth that out. And can you see this? Can I?
Oh, up here. Right
here.
Looking. Tony will hit number 4.
Number 4.
Thanks.
Okay. So you see how I'm smoothing it out, but I'm not going I'm just keeping it within an inch or so of the edge. I asked them to play some Irish music.
But YouTube is terrible with music, so we didn't.
Oh, okay.
Because we didn't want to be kicked off.
I don't want to be kicked off.
Yeah, that's no fun for anybody.
No.
Yes. Oh, just with walnuts in it. Those are the 2 words I couldn't see.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right, let us take our almost completely soaked wet noodle out. And I do recommend wiping off all the excess water. You don't need it for the drum, and it just makes life a little easier to work with.
Could you turn the brightness of this one down? So that we can see.
Yeah.
Can you river dance as you make the drum?
No, I can't river dance. I thought about it, and then I woke up in cold sweats, and I never did it.
Thank you.
No, I don't know if I would ever. I'll leave that to those others.
All right. Are we good with the water?
Yeah, we can get rid of the water.
Bye, Menards. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I didn't even pay attention to that being a Menards bucket. I just
It
grabbed.
was a green bucket, so I'm sure you were just like, Liz is going to love the color of this bucket.
I grabbed like a half a dozen. I have a lot of buckets at the farm, and I grabbed like a half a dozen of them, and every one was filled with dirt. And I'm like, and then it's the first one I grabbed. It actually looked kind of clean. So. All right, so.
You know, Denny has a water bucket too.
Does he?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I know he has water spray bottles.
Yeah, no, he has a water because sometimes he needs to soak his parts for molding.
Oh.
It's Rose's. Rose likes to drink out of it when she's here.
Okay. I've seen dogs drink out of worse.
All right.
So we're going to start with, and this is, I'm going to use Liz. I'm going to need some help from Liz on this. So, yeah. Okay, yeah. Look down.
So this one you need to phone a friend for this part.
And I do recommend it. My wife helped me on that other one. I was like, I fought forever trying to get this on the first one. All right. And then just go back And keep pulling all the way around till all your wrinkles are out.
Make it pretty, guys.
Make it pretty.
Make your pie pretty. I feel like we're doing a pie crust right now.
Yeah, same idea, right?
Yes. Not that I bake.
Wood glue and rubber bands. Make a good blueberry pie.
Yes.
Oh, you know what?
I will, Aaron.
So
Aaron says hi. Remember Aaron that used to work in Gathering? He says hi.
yes.
He's on
Hey, Aaron. What are you doing now?
Doing leather.
Doing leather.
All right. Is it going okay?
Yeah, it's going great. It's just like, I did this when you weren't here for the lampshades. When I did the lampshades, it takes time. You just got to go around working it and pulling the wrinkles out. Just be patient.
You just want evenly spaced wrinkles.
You do. I'm going to hit it with the hairdryer a little bit, just because I want that, just the edge. Get that wood glue to grab. And this is, again, almost, not quite, but almost. Guess what?
Oh, our rubber band came off.
My rubber band came off.
Reset.
Mm-hmm. For those of you who can do this without help, well, God bless you.
Luna, come here.
With the sound of Luna's claws on the door too much. All right, we're making drums.
We're making a Bowron.
All right.
Everybody say hi to Rusty.
Hello, Rusty.
Hi, Rusty. Hey, Tony, you took my YouTube chat away.
Drummer for you.
Thanks.
Sarcasm is one of our many services here at Springfield Leather.
Right, like this way. There is no refund on it, though.
No, that's true. It's a...
No refund. No money.
Can you stamp the edge? If you did a rawhide band, you could stamp, not a rawhide, you could do a veg tan band and stamp it when it was still wet.
Yeah. We're gonna play with that a little bit. Wasn't the original intention, but we'll play with that a little bit.
I gave John an idea.
Yeah, you did.
We're gonna see if
You
it works.
Give me a very good idea. So, I think it could be. I'm picturing it in my head. I think it would be beautiful.
You need to come
Okay.
give Dean.
All right.
Look, Rusty. He said, who is Rusty?
Ah!
Say, Dean, listen here, buddy.
He's that guy. All right, now, clamps.
Oh, hold on.
Yep, I'm going to make sure this stays taut because the rubber band itself won't be enough. So,
Look, did you guys forget his beautiful face? I mean, he was here for all of 10 minutes last week.
Hey, when the roof is literally...
The roof is fine!
Now, we have changed 6 air conditioners out this year due to failure, due to the heat and just moving things. And
so my wife and I had to build our own house this year. We had to tear the house almost completely down and rebuild an old farmhouse that we purchased. And the biggest problem we were having was with the roof. While at the same time, Rusty was having headaches with roofs as well. And I came in one time and I made a comment about the roof and how it's going while I was asking him for some advice. And he looked at me and he said, I used to like you.
I feel like I remember that day, John. Well, hey, this drum's turning out really nice, though.
Here's the finished product.
It totally
There's a finish.
looks like a pie crust.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's only a couple months away.
very nice. You should get a job doing this, John.
Yeah, you know.
That's his other job.
I got another job, yeah.
It's one of his other many jobs.
Man.
Well, hey, I mean, you do quite a bit of work for a local company here that you do rawhide stuff for that might or might not sell bass fishing equipment.
Pros at it.
They probably are pros at it if they really tried hard. And they might even be based out of, within a mile and a half.
Yeah.
You do a lot of work on the rawhide for lampshades and stuff too, don't you?
I do. I finished one a few months ago for a bar up in St. Louis. It was an old, I want to say they bought a barn that I think used to be a bar. And they were revamping it. And they sent me these lampshades to see if I could refinish them. And they were old. 100 years old, I don't know. It was old. And I did. I was able to refinish them. They loved them. And so I got that done. I've done them for that other guy you were talking about as well. Yeah.
You know, if I was to give a name to somebody, you know, John's pretty standard right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or Johnny even. Now, moving on back to what's more important here, John.
Yes.
I'm done.
Anyways,
I'm done.
so those clamps. So the rubber band really helps. What it does is it's going to keep the rawhide up against where the wood glue is. The clamps are just going to keep it taut, but they won't hold the rawhide against where the wood glue is. So that's
And
what
you
the
really didn't pull this, like.
No, you don't have to.
No.
You don't have to. You're going to make it taut. You're not going to pull it to where it's tight. If I soaked it a lot more and loosened it up and then I really pulled it, you run the risk of it crushing your frame when it dries. So you don't need to do that. Just you're going to work
You guys
out.
can see that I can push this in like a good half inch, like down.
Yeah, but it's taut.
Yeah.
It's definitely taut. It's a trampoline. So anyways.
Also a good analogy.
Yeah. Trampoline. So anyways, and then use the clamps. We're going to hit it with the hairdryer for a little bit. I'm not going to completely dry it in this stage. I would rather it dry slower on its own because it'll be more even when you do it that way. Hairdryer, it's going to dry quickly here, then quickly there, then quickly there. And again, rawhide has a bit of an attitude, especially if you try to make it do what you want it to do quickly, and it may surprise you and
It's a
make
finicky,
you unhappy. So what?
finicky beast.
We had a hairdryer.
Sure
I got a question for you real quick
Yeah.
before you start making noise because I got to get out of here.
Okay.
Did you mention anything about the clamps?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that they have teeth on them.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I didn't. These
And
clamps.
you see what I'm saying because it kind of reminded me of the toggles on drying leather. But
You're absolutely yes.
And that to me seems like it would be something important because you're counting on this drying and stretching and pulling tight.
Right. This. So let's show the camera. You can see the teeth here. Oh.
Sorry, I don't mean to get.
No, you're good. You're good.
There you go.
So you can see the teeth. And yes, when I do this and it's dried and I look at those teeth marks in the dried leather, first thing I think of is our leather when it comes in and how it got pulled and dried. Yeah, I do think about that often.
Well, I just thought, you've got them far enough down on there. It's not going to pull the clamp around, but those teeth are going to keep this rawhide from being drawn back around quite as readily. Maybe.
Yeah, no, it does. It works. Now I can. Trying to think of how I can word this. Depending on where you want your rawhide to dry, it's a point where rawhide starts to dry. For example, here it's folded over. I still have the clamp, but it's folded over right here. Okay, that fold when it starts to dry will become its own clamp and make it easier. So I could actually put a clothespin without the teeth and hold it in place. Depending on the thickness of my rawhide, is a point where your clothespins aren't going to hold it anymore. But for something like this, you could do clothespin and hold it in place when you're folding it over. I would still recommend getting some of these clamps.
Well, I was just thinking about people getting started to try with what they had and not having a great expense. And then, these clamps are cheap from Harbor Freight.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Very cool.
Yep. Yeah, it's funny with the clothespins because in my shop, while the clothespins, where the rawhide's dry, and you'll have clothespins just and yes, you can
So
stand
you gotta
there.
walk in with a helmet.
You don't want to rob anybody of that kind of
Yeah,
enjoyment.
you really. Yeah, make a game out of it. Let's see, where's this one going to hit?
Wear your safety glasses.
Yeah.
It's like Russian roulette with clothespins. It's like, everybody's sitting in the drum room.
I go through so many clothespins. I mean, I'm not kidding. Every order I get, every project I get, I'm like, let's just go buy another thing of another 100 pack of clothespins.
So cheap.
They are cheap. Yeah. They are cheap. So, anyways, okay. So let's hit it with the hairdryer.
All right, little here, guys.
Thanks for saying
All right,
hi.
thanks for coming by.
You like it? Oh.
So can you hear us in this gust of wind?
Not really. We have the sound suppression on, so it's suppressing all the sound. So that they also can hear it. So it's just making it a little bit like it's mostly quiet.
Well, and again, the reason I'm doing the hairdryer is to kind of, because we're trying to reduce what normally takes sometimes days into a shorter period of time. That's the main reason for it.
We
But,
should talk about that when we're done.
okay. They getting bored with me doing this and not talking?
No, we're good. We're just watching you work. What? Rusty in the leather. Yes.
How are we on time?
11:41, so 20-ish minutes. Really, I mean, if you go over by a little bit. I don't know what
I'm actually more worried about filling up. Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. At this point, it has
Really
to dry,
doesn't
right?
take much, huh?
It just has to dry, right? Before we can do anything
Yeah,
else.
there is one. The next thing I would do. Go ahead and turn those off. I don't want to over dry it. Okay, so the next thing I would do, and I would do it while it's still partly wet, is you got to trim the excess, and you want to trim it down about 1 inch all the way around. Okay, I'm going to use a sharp pair of scissors.
Real quick, if you didn't use the hair dryer, about how long would it take to get to this point if you just let it sit naturally at this stage?
Okay, if I set it like in this room where our humidity level's down and it's just, what are we at? 74 degrees, 72 degrees, something like that. This would probably take a couple of hours to come back and do the trimming.
Okay.
Okay, and then I would let it set overnight till the following day before I did anything else with it.
Okay.
Give it a full overnight. Most rawhide takes even longer. Like this sheath I made, took better part of a week to properly dry. Just because of how thick it is. I have multiple layers in there, and then it's folded over, which added more layers. Rawhide doesn't. You would think it would dry really quickly. You'd be surprised.
I mean, it took forever just to soak up the water.
Oh yeah.
Like when you put leather into a bucket, like you just see the the bubbles, and it's like doing a thing super actively. Like it's just soaking it in. This is just like, I'm gonna do this my own time.
So these domes that I do, these chandeliers that I do, I'll have it totally done and stretched and nice and taut in the shop, and then overnight. I turn off the ventilation system and such, and overnight the moisture, it's going to absorb the moisture like a sponge, not as bad, but it will, and then you go back in and it's all wrinkled up, and you're like, oh my gosh, and then you take it out and put it in the sun, and it just right back into where it's supposed to be, and it's hilarious to watch it different, and again, you'll always deal with that, no matter how dry your rawhide is, you're always going to deal with that, and again, you get to know your thickness of your rawhide, and that all plays a factor in it as well. Okay. Do we want to talk any more about the lacing and what we want to do, or we want to hold off for later and then we'll see what we conclude with on that?
It's whatever you want.
I'm doing that.
So we're gonna trim.
We're gonna trim. We'll trim off the excess rawhide. What I'm concerned about is if I do it now, I won't have the clamps, anything to hold on to, and that wood glue's not set yet, and I have nothing to hold it in place if I do that. So that's gonna have to. We actually could do that Friday. There's no reason. It'll be fully dry. Okay. We could still do that. I have the good sharp scissors, and we could still do that on Friday and just trim it, and we'll be fine with that. Okay. So, all right. What else do we need to talk about? We're kind of at.
We're at the spot.
Yeah, just kind of like let it sit, let it dry, give it time.
Rawhide is time.
It is time.
So, no, I think that's fine. So that's where we're at on Friday. I think it'll go pretty quickly. We'll get the trim job done. We'll get our, this taping, I think is probably what's going to take the longest, don't you think? Yeah. Getting the tape on it. So we'll tape it, and then you just put this, and you drill your holes and tack it on.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be simple enough. It'll be simple enough. It's just a process. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I mean, we're making a drum, so now we have to let the rawhide dry.
So what do you got? 15 minutes? Let's just sit here and watch. It's like watching the grass grow.
Let's see here. What weight of rawhide was that? Does it say, Tony, on the rawhide, the goat rawhide listings?
I don't think it does. It's pretty much a set. Whenever you buy the full sides or the drum heads, they're usually all the
They're
same.
very, and this is going to be a little bit fatter than it's going to be because it's has moisture in it, but that's like 1 ounce, guys. So it's very thin. But
you use the drum cover, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
2 ounces, approximately.
So this is like that's 1.5 right there. So it's not, and it might be a little bit thicker in the middle than it is on the edge, possibly, but it's going to be real consistent. Is it easy to tear this? Does this tear easily?
No, it doesn't. It won't. It'll last. Should last you a year unless you really beat on it. I mean, no pun intended. But
how about like upkeep on a drum? Is there any conditioning that you would do, or what kind of? We could talk about that.
I do a real simple neat's foot oil
Okay.
on it. The thing is well, I do that on the domes and on the lampshades. I do that. The issue with the drum is when you put any kind of oil or moisture on it whatsoever, it's going to absorb that, which is going to change your tone. You got a little more stretch in it as you softened it. It's going to change the tone. So I'd be reluctant to put any kind of treatment on this. I'd have to do a little more research, and I guess you guys can too. What would you do on goat rawhide drum? Would you treat it with anything? But it's going to change if you don't care about the tone. If you just care to have a drum sound when you do it, then yeah, and that will preserve it. But when you're looking for a particular tune, I'll be reluctant to put any kind of treatment on it.
Well, so, and I guess maybe going back to just kind of like why you would want to condition it is kind of for longevity. But eventually this rawhide might get to the point where it might tear or it might get too dry and go through something. And then you would just recover your drum, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's ideal.
It's not the end of the world if it starts to tear. It really isn't. You peel it up around. You popping off the edge wouldn't be difficult. Peeling up the rawhide, sand it, do a hand sanding, sand the edges down, and then just start all over again. You just basically you're starting all over again.
Like this will have some sort of a life. It's going to be years. If you're in a really dry climate, it might be a little bit shorter than if you're in a climate that has some humidity to it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think the biggest issue is that once the rawhide gets dry enough to the point that if you hit it or something happens, traveling, whatever, you might start to get a tear in the rawhide if it gets too dry. But I think that's several years down the road.
I've some of the stuff that I've done in the past that sit in extreme heat where light bulbs are on it. It's 10, 15 years before it starts to tear.
Okay.
So you got a bit of time before that. And this all you're doing is you're hitting it with a tipper. You're not pounding it with your hand. You don't have big drumsticks that you're doing. You're hitting it with a tipper, and that's a little bit gentler on the drum.
So for storage for these, what would you recommend?
Cool, dry place. You're living, hanging on at your wall in your house.
Maybe not direct light.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, LED lights type stuff. I don't think it's going to affect it. But yeah, keep it away from a light bulb because you don't want. That's the thing on the heat will shorten its life. It causes it to stretch more, and it'll get almost like a dry rot.
Yeah.
Crackling effect. So keep it away from incandescent light bulbs.
Okay.
Hang these on the wall.
It's goat. We have it on order. I actually looked at the stock, and it does look like we had ran out of a lot of the sizes on the goat rawhide, or just like the different the drum covers. And so, wait a minute, I didn't look at the drum covers. I just looked at the natural goat hides.
Oh yeah,
I think, and those we were
we
in
had
stock
quite a
of because
There's a bunch.
I was gonna say we had quite a bit when I looked the other day.
Okay, yeah. So we should have a bunch of rolled drum covers. If you're looking at the natural goat skins, those I think we needed to order and get in. So if you wanted to cut your own shape out of a skin or something a little bit more natural, but these we had plenty of stock in.
Yeah, and I grabbed an extra one out of the bin I don't need, so I'm gonna put it back in the bin. So there's one for you.
Search rawhide drum covers on our website.
I checked this morning and still on order. Dean, what were you checking? Were you checking the goat skins or were you checking the drum covers? Because there'll be two options. If you go to a drumming during humid weather.
Looking at the drum covers, you can't order it right now.
Okay, we'll look at that.
Because it's not set up correctly on the website.
Oh, cool. We will look at the drum covers right now.
Priority.
Oh, Michael, they are on order. I saw that. I think Kendall had sent the PO in early last week. I think it was, and I don't think it takes very long for us to get those in. So hopefully they'll be in the next week or so.
Yeah, we have all these size options, and then you just order size, and all of them have
Oh, this person that has a blue. Oh, Mikey. Hey, Mikey. He was told that whenever he was playing in bands to use hand lotions on my conga skins as long as it had lanolin in it.
Okay.
So there's a suggestion.
Oh, there's special purchase elk drum covers too. Or those.
Those
We cut. Do we have those anymore?
we've not been cutting elk for a long time. All the drum heads that we have all been stuff that we.
Right, that's why we got all those dyes.
Yeah.
To cut the elk.
But we haven't. I don't think we have any.
No, we bought some elk rawhide. It was like several years ago. And so then we bought all the circles, which is why we now offer circles all the way up to 18 inches.
Right.
So that we could cut drum covers out of that. Somebody asked about, does the weight of the rawhide affect the pitch of the drum?
Yes.
The thicker, the lower.
It does. It does. And again, so my experience is your typical, like a Native American drum, is going to be made of elk or deer. That's generally what I see that made out of, and then laced with cow. For musical instruments, it's usually goat. That's most commonly used in musical instruments. It's easy to work with, I think, more than anything. But I guess the pitch is the pitch they're looking for as well. So musical instruments, I know a drum is a musical instrument, regardless, and that's. But a musical instrument like these Balrons, goat is. It's also a bit more. They didn't have. I was going to say they didn't have elk in Ireland, but yes, they did. So I can't use that.
Have you ever made a banjo head?
No, I've never made a banjo head. Any banjo any banjo I've come across has always been a man-made material and not a goat material. And it's just that's just all I experienced, but that'd be cool, yeah.
Larry has a drum made of horsehide, which I bet is pretty awesome.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
Horsehide.
I wish we had more horse options here in the U.S., but horses are like our dogs, so we just don't. If we were more like the French, we would just eat it, and it would not be a big deal, but that's not how it works here.
Not anymore.
No, we got to go to Canada for that. Alrighty, well, I think we've jammered on about drums.
Jam on it.
Yeah. Anything else before we call it and then come back on Friday?
No. Again, as far as supplies go, we're going to go over the finishing on Friday. We're going to look into veg tan versus the oil tan that we're going to use for the trim, and maybe if we have time and if it looks like it's going to work, maybe we can get somebody to tool it.
Yeah.
Real fast, or at least emboss it. At the very least, that would look cool.
That would look cool.
So we'll mess with that, and really that's it.
So
write your questions down so on Friday we can, because I know things are going to pop up between now and then.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's not your rawhide.
And hopefully what?
Hopefully it's not your rawhide.
Hopefully it's not your rawhide.
That pops up.
Oh, I got you. Ha, 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 ha.
If so mostly we're letting the glue tack up and dry and kind of adhere here. So if you were just doing this on your own, you said maybe 2 or 3 hours worth of drying, and it would probably be set enough for you to trim.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
And then I would give it the overnight to finish for the rawhide head itself to finish drying. But until I know that glue is firmly holding up to that, we're not going to. Yeah.
No. All right. So there you go. So 3 hours.
We'll trim it.
Good. You can trim it when it's dry. It's not the end of the world. Sharp scissors.
Yeah.
So, alrighty. Well, we will see you guys on Friday. Real quick, if you are a live shopper, tomorrow we will be doing cabs and bundies because we didn't really want to prep anything because we're trying to get ready for the National Leathercraft Day on the 15th of August. We're going to be doing all-day live shopping. So tomorrow's going to be a little bit more simple. We just got in a bunch of new cool cabochons. I've got circles. I've got really cool moons out of coral. Like, we've got a bunch of cool things here. So we'll be selling the cabs. I think Isaac took a bunch of video and things yesterday that he'll be posting or has already posted on Facebook for that. And then we'll be making oil tan bundies tomorrow. That will be all of live shopping tomorrow. And then Friday we'll be back with the drum. So who cuts your hair?
Say bye, Liz.
Bye.